Hello, I'm Henry Keane and we are UATV. We're online to give you the Ukrainian perspective of reality. Watch in the episode. Russia is killing prisoners of war. Today, Ukraine marks a Remembrance Day. No more parades in Russia. The Kremlin cancels Navy parade. Learn why. Ukrainian intelligence reveals Western components in Russian weaponry. Please join the right side of history by subscribing to our channel, and welcome to the News Pulse. Today, Ukraine honors the memory of the defenders, volunteers and civilians who were murdered, tortured or died in Russian captivity. The date, July 28th, was not chosen accidentally. 3 years ago, on the night of July 28th, 2022, Russia deliberately committed a mass murder prisoners of war in the former penal colony number 120 in the temporarily occupied territory of Donetsk region. As a result of a Russian terror in Olenivka, at least 53 Ukrainian defenders were killed and 130 more injured. This was a terrorist attack and it was a crime planned by the Kremlin. The United Nations clearly recognizes. We all know that military parades is why Russia starts wars, right? It's a beloved Russian Tsar's toy parade, no matter what. And now Russia has cancelled the country's main Navy parade. However, no worries. Kremlin's mouthpiece, Comrade Dmitry Peskov, explained it all. Parade was cancelled for security reasons. However, the Center for Countering Disinformation under the Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, as well as simple common sense, suggests that the real reason behind parade cancellation is simple arithmetic. The losses of the Russian fleet in the war against Ukraine are way too obvious to reveal. Just saying. Natalia Gusak with more detail for you.
There will be no naval parade in St. Petersburg or other Russian cities. Fireworks, the march of columns of sailing, rowing, and motorboats and jet skis have also been cancelled.
This is due to the general situation. For security reasons, they are above all. Dmitry Peskov, Putin's press secretary, in a comment to Russian media.
Navy Day in Russia used to be celebrated on a grand scale. The St. Petersburg parade was usually considered the main one. However, this year there will be no ships sailing along the Neva, nor fireworks from the Peter and Paul fortress. Instead, Putin simply congratulated the servicemen on Navy Day at the Admiralty. The Center for Countering Disinformation under the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine believes that the decision to cancel the parade could have been made out of concerns by the Russian military command that the losses of the fleet in the war against Ukraine would become too obvious, and the parade, which is intended to demonstrate the so-called strength of Russia, will produce the opposite impression.
The Kremlin can no longer pretend that the war does not affect the Russian home front. The war affects all spheres of life in Russia, even such symbolic and high-profile events as the naval parade. Today, Russian ships cannot feel safe, even on their own territory. From the report of the Center for Countering Disinformation of Ukraine on Facebook,
against this background, the news about the decision to write off and scrap the Russian aircraft carrier Admiral Kuznetsov speaks for itself. Russia may lose its last and only aircraft carrier, said Andrei Kostin, chairman of the board of directors of the United Shipbuilding Corporation. According to him, reviving the Admiral Kuznetsov no longer makes sense.
It is in our diocese, yes. We believe that there is no point in repairing it. It is already over 40 years old, and it is an extremely expensive thing. I think the issue will be resolved in the sense that it will either be sold or disposed of. Andrei Kostin, chairman of the board of directors of the United Shipbuilding Corporation, from a publication by Medusa.
After the start of the full-scale invasion of the Russian army into Ukraine, the armed forces of Ukraine have thoroughly thinned out the Russian Navy. Since 2022, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Russia has lost 28 ships and boats, and 1 submarine. The list includes the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet, the missile cruiser Moskva, the corvette Sergei Kotov, the cruiser boat Ivanovets, the landing ships Saratov, Novocherkassk, Caesar Kunikov, and others.
It's impressive. Ukraine has changed the nature of naval warfare, at least for closed areas like the Black Sea or the Baltic Sea, and I think all of our navies are paying close attention to the vulnerabilities that the Ukrainians have been able to exploit. And the fact that they've done it with a clever combination of new technology, adapted technology, and special forces against a traditional ship-to-ship type of combat, I think that also speaks to the unpreparedness and incapacity of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Ben Hodges, commander of the U.S. Army Europe, 2014 to 2018. In a comment for the Silicon Curtain Valley YouTube channel.
Russian Navy Day has become a symbol not of power, but of the failure of the Russian naval doctrine, experts believe. After all, the Russian fleet cannot control the Black Sea, and the naval blockade of Ukraine has failed. After systematic attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces, Russia withdrew its Black Sea fleet to Novorossiysk in Krasnodar Krai.
The Ukrainian Defense Forces, represented by the main intelligence directorate, the Security Service of Ukraine, the Unmanned Systems Forces, Aviation and Air Defense, based, of course, on the Ukrainian Navy, have not only declassified the Russian Black Sea Fleet, but have multiplied by 0 its military value in such a basically not very large naval theater as the Black Sea. And this is now a huge and unique event that makes naval strategists and practitioners around the world think hard. The defeat of the Russian Black Sea Fleet is not just a military strategic, but also a geopolitical fact and a factor in Russia's war against Ukraine. Andrei Klimenko, head of the monitoring group of the Institute of Black Sea Strategic Studies.
Russians are deprived of more than just a spectacular Navy Day.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Parade this year. In several large cities of the aggressor country, authorities have ordered fountains to be turned off on Navy Day and Paratrooper Day. So far, this decision is being implemented only in Rostov-on-Don. True, they will not only turn off the fountains there, but even drain them. Reported by Natalia Gusak, Vladimir Shtengelov, Pavlo Stelmach, UATV News.
NATO member countries will receive military equipment from the United States, which they can transfer to Ukraine. This was stated by US President Donald Trump at a meeting with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen yesterday. He mentioned Ukraine when answering a question about whether the European Union could count on a fair trade deal after its members, which are also NATO members, committed to significantly increasing defense spending.
No, but we had a terrific meeting with NATO. I'd love to do as well. We had a meeting where they put up 5% instead of 2%, and they're going to pay it instead of not paying, because, as you know, many people didn't pay the 2% or anywhere near it, and the 2% was too low. And we're going to be sending now military equipment and other equipment to NATO, and they'll be doing what they want, but I guess it's, for the most part, working with Ukraine.
The meeting between Ursula von der Leyen and Donald Trump resulted in the signing of a trade agreement between the US and the EU. The tariff on EU goods imported to the US has been reduced from 30% to 15%. At the same time, the EU will purchase energy resources from the US worth $750 billion and also invest another $600 billion in the American economy.
We have a deal. We have a trade deal between the two largest economies in the world. And it's a big deal, it's a huge deal. It will bring stability, it will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic. It's 15% tariffs across the board, all inclusive. The investments Mr. President just described, that going to go to the United States and the purchases over there. Indeed, basically, the European market is open. It's 450 million people. So it's a good deal. It's a huge deal. Yeah. It was tough negotiations. I knew it at the beginning, and it was indeed very tough. But we came to good conclusions for both sides. So again, congratulations and many thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so this huge deal between the United States and the European Union has avoided an escalation in transatlantic trade relations, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said, quoted by Deutsche Welle. According to Merz, the deal is of primary importance for the automobile industry since Trump's tariffs will be reduced from 27.5% right to 15%. The German Chancellor said that these are the fruits of unity in the European Union and hard work. He also expressed hope to see transatlantic trade procedures simplified in the future.
This has prevented a trade conflict that could have hit Germany's export-oriented economy hard. Everyone benefits from stable and predictable trade relations with market access for both sides. both on this side of the Atlantic and on the other, both businesses and consumers. Friedrich Merz, Chancellor of Germany.
Russia is preparing a more extensive terror strikes for Ukraine, as evidenced by an increase in the production of missiles and attack drones, according to a report by the Institute for the Study of War. Analysts say the Russian defense industry is increasing its capacity. According to analysts, Russia will be able to target Ukraine with as much as up to 2,000 drones in a single night by November 2025.
Increasingly large Russian strike packages highlight the critical importance of Western assistance in bolstering Ukraine's air defense capabilities, particularly with U.S.-made Patriot air defense systems that can effectively counter Russian ballistic missile threats. Russia is increasingly targeting densely populated cities as part of a cognitive warfare effort to weaken Ukrainian resolve and to undermine Ukraine's long-term defense capacity. From the report by Institute for the Study of War.
The total combat losses of the Russian army since the beginning of the full-scale invasion have already exceeded 1,050,000 people. Of these, 1,000 occupiers were eliminated in the past 24 hours alone. This is reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. According to the data, 4 Russian tanks and the same number of artillery systems were destroyed in the course of the day, an armored vehicle and a multiple launch rocket system, as well as more than 100 pieces of different automotive support means. In the Volgograd region of Russia, drones attacked a power substation near railway over the weekend. This was reported by local public groups. The fire broke out near an oil depot near the village of Oktyabrski. The authorities confirmed that the power supply to the railway contact network in the Oktyabrski district was disrupted due to the falling drone debris. Logistics of oil and oil products are now redirected through the Zhukovo railway station. Temporary restrictions were also introduced at the airports of Volgograd and Kaluga. The Ukrainian Defense Forces have liberated the frontline border village of Kondratovka in the Sumy region. This was reported by the spokesman of the Kursk Group of Forces, Lieutenant Colonel Yaroslav Chepurny. He also added that stabilization measures are currently onwards in Kondratovka. The other day, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky reported that defense forces had pushed back the Russian army in the Sumy region. The Ukrainian Defense Forces managed to thwart the plans of the Russian army in the Sumy region. Indeed, this was confirmed by Volodymyr Zelensky after the report of the Commander-in-Chief Alexander Severski. The president also noted that the defense forces continue to operate within Russian territory.
Our active actions in the Sumy region continue, and I am grateful to each unit that is gradually pushing out Russian forces. I thank the Commander-in-Chief for having managed to disrupt the Russian plan regarding the Sumy region. Although this region of ours remains one of the priority areas for the enemy, our forces invariably block Russian attempts to advance deep into the Sumy region from the border area. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The Russian army attempted a major assault in the Severski direction the day before. According to the operational strategic group of forces Khortytsa, the enemy used up to 80 units of automobile, armored and motorized equipment as a means of mechanized support. The Ukrainian military successfully repelled the attempt. About 200 enemy soldiers eliminated. The enemy also failed to break through the Ukrainian defense in any of the tactical directions. The Atesh guerrilla have successfully paralyzed the railway logistics of the Russian occupiers in the Zaporizhzhia region. The sabotage was carried out on the railway line between the communities of Safonovo and Novoalexeyevka in the temporarily occupied part of the Kherson region, Atesh reports. This section is of critical importance for the supply of military cargo in the Zaporizhzhia direction due to damage to the main relays in particular and disruption of the railway infrastructure in general. It was possible to temporarily completely stop the supply of military cargo and fuel towards Melitopol. Ukrainian experts from the main intelligence directorate presented Ukrainian and foreign diplomats with samples of captured Russian weaponry and numerous electronic components of Western manufacture which continue to flow into Russia through loopholes in international sanctions. Ukrainian experts also presented the War and Sanctions analytical platform. This tool allows for the effective tracking of Western components in Russian weapons and counteracts the circumventions of sanctions imposed on the aggressor state. The platform regularly maintains and updates the electronic database of new samples studied by specialists from the main intelligence directorate and partners and colleagues from other research institutions. Well, that was it for today. My name is Henry Keane and we are Newspools at UATV working for you. Your time and attention, we appreciate it a lot. Thank you. Please don't forget to join in fight for freedom and sovereignty. Subscribe to our channel so to stay tuned to latest things happening in Ukraine. Hope to see you soon. Goodbye.